I am currently in the Walmart parking lot. We are gonna go into Walmart and just see what we can find for $15. Can we make a sheet pan Christmas feast? Alright everyone, so this is what we got for our $15. We got this ham steak for $3.45. Everything else I'm just gonna stick the price on the screen and then I'm gonna tell you what it ended up being at the very end. Got these mini marshmallows. Oh, I should say we're doing a apple glazed ham steak, and our mini marshmallows are gonna go really well with our sweet potatoes. I got two, one really small one. Let's see this little baby one. 2 potatoes. We are doing some roses, the sweet potatoes, and doing some roses with these potatoes. With the sweet potatoes, we're going to do marshmallows and butter as part of our filling and things for the rose. And with the regular potatoes, I've got this box of turkey stuffing, and we're going to use that to hold our rose together. And for dessert, we are actually doing an apple turnover. And we're going to do that with our flour and apples, butter. I think that's it. We got 1 pack of this budding beef, this corned beef. We're going to use this to wrap our green beans. I think it'll be good. We are also going to season a lot of our stuff with these bouillon cubes. They're going to be our source of flavor and salt, because when I was factoring in $15, I wanted to make sure we had everything. Salt and pepper, we didn't have the budget for that, so this is what we got to get the most bang for our buck. We got this fast rising instant yeast. I'm gonna make some homemade Crescent Rolls with some of the butter, the flour, and some of this fast rising yeast. And then I've got 1 ear of corn. I was gonna get 2, but they only had 1, and the other one was all shriveled up and didn't look like it was worth anything. So I'm gonna use this one, and we're gonna make it stretch. And we got this ½ pound of fresh green beans. We're gonna use those, like I said, to wrap up and make little green bean bundles. And that is what we got. So we will get to cooking. Alright guys, we're gonna make some crescent rolls. We're gonna do it from scratch. So we're gonna use flour, we have yeast, we don't have sugar because that didn't fit in the $15. So what I'm going to use instead of sugar is I'm going to see if we can maybe melt down a couple of these marshmallows, and that's going to be our sugar. We also have margarine, so that's what we're going to use to make these delicious crescent rolls. We'll see if they turn out, and I will let you know, because honestly I'm going to make this entire meal and then I will tell my tips and tricks afterwards, because if it doesn't turn out quite how I'm wanting it, then I will let you know, and that way you can make those tweaks and have the perfect Christmas dinner. So I'm needing to feed 3 people, so I'm going to make several of these rolls, but I'm not going to make a ton. So I have a 2-pound bag of flour, and I will get to work. Oh, and all the recipes are going to be below in the description, so check that out. And 10. I'm going to put 10 of these guys in. We'll see how that works. This is not going to be super warm water. We're doing 1 teaspoon of yeast. This is what it's looking like, and it hasn't had a chance to really grow yet. So we're going to see if it does grow, and in about 10 minutes it should have grown and had some bubbles on the top. So we will see what it looks like in about 10 minutes. Alright, so while our yeast is growing, we are going to start on our apple turnovers we're going to do. So to do that, you're going to need your apple pie filling. You're going to need 5 tablespoons cut up of your margarine, and I'm going to use a cup of flour. Now with pastry, you want to make sure your butter is cold, because it's going to evaporate and create those little pockets that you know in pastry and make it really flaky. You would normally want to add some salt, but my budget did not allow for salt. So we're going to use nothing, and we're going to hope it turns out still. The butter is actually salted, I should say. I just remembered that. So that helps make up for the fact that we don't have the salt to add to this pastry. You're going to want to make sure and cut it all into your flour so that it's almost like crumb inside of your flour. So this is looking really good. You can see that it's turned into this nice crumbly mixture, and there's no big clumps of butter anymore. They're all pretty small. Now we're gonna add in 1/8 cup of water. It's gonna be as cold as I can get it, so that's what I've got here. And then we're gonna just mix to combine. It's better if you can mix with a fork, because as we say, you're wanting it to stay as cold as possible. Now, not just because of the butter, but also because a warm environment helps activate the gluten in the flour. Gluten in flour makes a dough chewy, and you want a flaky pie crust, not a chewy one. So that's why you're wanting everything to stay cold, you're wanting to not overmix, and you're wanting to stay away from anything that's going to add warmth to your dough. Open this container of apple pie filling. Now, if you have the budget for it, an option that would probably be really good would be to get a bottle of cinnamon as well, because then you could add a little bit of cinnamon inside. That would make it extra delicious. Now, a secret to making an extra delicious pie as well is to add a few little pats of butter on top of your filling, and that'll just make everything extra delicious inside. Again, this is Christmas, so not a super healthy meal per se, but should be delicious. All right, now that we got that all done up, we are gonna just do a little turn with it. And we're gonna pinch these edges together. In order to make sure your edges seal, you can tuck them under and just roll them a little bit so that those edges really seal well. If you don't seal your edges well, your pie crust is just gonna open up and everything inside is gonna fall out. If it does, it will still taste fine, but it won't look as pretty, which is also fine. As long as it tastes good, right? All right, now our little turnover is looking cute. We're gonna use this fork and just make a little pattern along the edges. That'll just make it extra cute looking. Because we do want this meal to be pretty as well as hopefully make it a little easy on ourselves, because we're gonna stick it all in at the same time. And that way everything will cook. Another tip for a pie is to make sure that you cut a little slit in the top or two. That helps you to know when it's done, because if it starts oozing out the top, then you know it's cooked all the way through. So, like so. You can see I put some little things in. Some little, yeah. So you can see mine's starting to have a little hole in the bottom. I'm gonna add a little dough just because I wanna try to make sure that it doesn't go everywhere. And it's okay to patch things up if you need to. This is Christmas, it is not perfection. Beautiful. All right, so our pie is looking lovely. This is our first turnover. I'm gonna stick this on our sheet pan. Now I'm doing this up kind of like a charcuterie board, so there's gonna be a little of everything on that same pan. And I think it'll all taste fine in the end too. Or at least we hope so. If not, we'll find out. Now I actually had a fair amount of dough left. I could have made probably 2, maybe 3 more of these guys, but I think the 3 is all that's going to fit on a single pan. So we'll set this to the side and we'll use it later in something else. Now let's just have a look at this yeast and see if it's working out. And look at that, it's working out. It's growing. That's some good yeast now. So you can see the marshmallows did not really finish melting or anything like that, but I don't think that's going to be a problem, because once we start, you know, massaging this bread, whatever it's called, what do you call it? Kneading. Once we start kneading this bread, I think it's going to all melt together and smush together and be fine. So we are going to start on these croissants because those need some time to rise. I'm starting with the things that are gonna do fine sitting out a little bit, and that also will maybe need a little time on that pan first. All right, now we're gonna start on these croissants now that we've got the yeast all going and it's looking like it's rising fine. So we are gonna start off with 1.5 cups of flour. All right, now we're just gonna mix this entirely. Mix it all in. Start kneading it. really resistant to doing anything. It's springing back a lot, so it actually is needing to rest a little bit before I do anything with it. Otherwise it's really not going to do a whole lot for me. We're gonna change our focus to a few other things. Probably our next thing that we're gonna focus on is gonna be the sweet potato and potato rosettes that we're gonna do. I saw some pictures of it and it looked really pretty, so I'm hoping that it will take the amount of time I think it will take to cook, especially if I cut it really thinly. So we're going to see if we can do that while this rests a little bit, and we'll come back to it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to wash and peel your sweet potatoes and your potatoes. The next thing you're going to want to do is thinly slice. I actually ended up using the peeler. The peeler was much better at getting those round shapes we were looking for, and ones that are like very flexible, you can see. So this is what we're going to use to make our roses. In order to make the roses, you're going to want a line of potato, and pick out ones that are round if you can. You're going to roll, and you're going to need most likely a toothpick to help you out a little bit. So when you roll it up, you're going to get something like this. Now I'm going to make the rose a lot bigger, so in order to do that, all you need is the little medallions. You need more of them in a line. So that's what I'm about to do. I'm going to make a couple of these and I'll show you how they look. Alright, so these are what my roses are looking like. They actually turned out fairly well. You can tell this was my first one, and it kind of improved since then. I was finding too that the ones that were like a half circle or that sort of thing, those still turned out fine. This is not really a beginner type of sweet potato deal, though. I was having quite a struggle trying to roll those roses up, and so I would not necessarily recommend doing the rose shape. I would recommend, however, either slicing it thin and just laying it out kind of like a scalloped potato style type of deal, or to do these little cubes, which these are what the ends ended up being, because you can't make circles out of the little teeny points at the end. So I'm going to top this now and stick little pats of butter and little marshmallows all throughout this, and then this part of our dish will be done. Alright, so this is what our tower of marshmallows and butter is looking like now. So we've got our apple turnovers and we've got our sweet potatoes done. As you can see, our dough has been resting and actually rose a fair amount here. So we are going to just smush it down a little bit and let it roll out.
This is just around the corner. Coming.
The trick with crescent rolls is that you're going to want the butter in layers throughout the whole dish. So we're going to stick pats of butter, then we're going to fold it over, and we're going to keep going with that. We're going to roll it out, then fold more pats of butter in, then roll it out, like that for several times until we have plenty of layers with our butter in throughout.
Gingerbread woman and a gingerbread man in a gingerbread house and all. Christmas is just around the corner.
Ready to start cutting. Now you're going to cut in long triangular, can't say that word, triangular type of shapes like this. It's going to give you your nice crescent roll shape. If you've ever seen dough that comes out of a can, it's very similar to that in the sense of what shape you're looking for. Now in order to make your crescent roll, I'm going to start with one that looks nice. You're going to take the bottom side and you're going to start rolling it up from there. So you're rolling it down like this. And then the very tip, you're going to tuck and just kind of press it in. And there we go. We've got a homemade crescent roll. And we're going to stick that on our board over here. Alright, so now this is what our sheet pan's looking like. As you can see, that made quite a few rolls. Wow, this is going to be quite the feast. I was going to do some roses with these two, and I was going to use some stuffing mixture as the binder to help it to stick together a little bit better, but I just just don't have it in me to do all that. So what we are going to do is we are going to cut these really thin, just like we did the sweet potatoes, like a scallop potato, and we're going to use that right below the meat so the meat kind of flavors it a little bit more as well. And we're gonna skip the stuffing actually. So I bought the stuffing, but I don't think anybody in my house was really wanting to eat stuffing at the moment because we just had a lot of stuffing. So we're gonna do this. That's how I'm going to flavor these potatoes. Is I'm going to take these bouillon cubes. I'm gonna take one of them and crush it up in a little bit of warm water, and then I'm gonna just brush some of these with the bouillon cube, and I'm also going to add a little bit of butter because the butter and the potatoes are really going to go well together. Got our bouillon cube, we're plopping it into the water. I'm just going to let it dissolve real quick. And this mixture, if you have some leftover, you're going to want to hang on to it because we are going to brush our green beans with the same mixture. So I'm going to take a couple of these. We're going to take a little bit of our butter over here. Just stick a little bit in between some of these. Not necessarily everyone has to have butter, but if you put a little bit between several of them, it'll just make it look good, to make it taste good. This is what our sheet pan meal is looking like. That ham is front and center, and all of these potatoes around here, all with their butter and their bouillon cube on there. And now we're just going to add some of this apple pie filling, and we're going to stick it right on top here. Now you just want to make sure it's fairly covered with the apples. This is going to give it a nice sweet flavor, a little bit of spice from the cinnamon that's in these cinnamon apples, and that goes really well with the ham. I'll just cover that little bone up. All right, so that's looking great. Now these green beans, I'm just going to go really simple. We have this budding corned beef, and we're going to wrap a bundle of the green beans with it, and then we're going to also be brushing it with this bouillon cube water mixture that we made earlier to give it lots of flavor. So I've put these in half like this. I'm going to take a bundle of like about 4 or 5 green beans. Actually, I'm probably going to do about six green beans, and we are going to just wrap them up in this little bundle. And the corned beef is really going to flavor the green beans and make them taste delightful. I actually don't think I needed 2. I was going to do 2, but I think I need only 1. And they look like that. Very cute. So before I'm wrapping them up, I'm gonna just brush them with this. That way all of the green beans get a little bit of this salt from this mixture on it instead of just the outside, because I think the corned beef is already salty, but this will give it just a little extra salt, a little extra flavor. Next up, we've got our corn on the cob. Husk it. I'm just doing 1 ear because honestly that's all we have room for, if even that. So I'm going to cut off the very tail end because there's not much corn on that end. And then I'm also going to cut off the stem part. Then I'm just going to cut it into sections. I'm going to do a couple of different sections.
Mistletoe. Tell me one.
I wound up getting 5 pieces of this corn. I'm going to brush it with this bouillon mixture, and then I'm going to find places for it on the pan.
That snow. Whatever we do, we will be.
And there we have it. Our sheet pan feast is ready to go in the oven. We're going to see if it all cooks at the same time. That is the true test. So if some of the things start looking a little more brown than others, I'm going to cover those pieces or those parts of the pan with tin foil. So that way it'll slow down the cooking process a little bit. But I'm excited to see how it turns out. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees. We're going to cook this. It's probably going to take at least 20 minutes. I'm thinking probably closer to 30. And I'm hoping 30 is good enough. All right. Yay! Cook well! And now here's the mess that I need to clean up. So that is the beauty of a sheet pan meal, is that you stick it in the oven and while it's cooking you can finish cleaning up the place and make it look presentable once again. And yeah, that's what I enjoy about sheet pans and casseroles, is you stick it in the oven, then you can clean up real fast while it's cooking and you don't have a lot of cleanup afterwards. While I check and check and check again that this meal is done, I wanted to go over a few tips that I would have done if I was doing this meal again. First off, I wouldn't have gotten the flour or the yeast and would have chosen to instead get one of those pop tube of Crescent Rolls for 93 cents. That would have made a much better outcome and been a lot less work. Next, I would have stuck my pastries and my rolls on pieces of tinfoil. That way it would have separated from the rest of the pan. The bottom's got a little soggy being next to some of the meats and things. I would have also put more of that bouillon cube on the green beans and on the potatoes because they were just lacking a lot of flavor. They could have used a lot more salt. And lastly, I definitely would have cooked it longer. We were eager to eat, so I did not cook it any longer, but it definitely could have used a little more time. In all, I would say I should have cooked it about an hour and 10 minutes. So it actually took way longer than I thought it was going to cook. But as you can see, the end result is beautiful. Wow. It was such a fancy meal and really delicious, and the ham and apples really went well together. The corned beef around the green beans was actually a really good surprise as well. I didn't realize how well they would go together. If you enjoyed this cooking video, check out some of my other cooking videos, and I will see you all in the next one.
Tell